Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Mega Group. My name is Linda Sylvester and I will be your host for the Wednesday Mega Groups. Our schedule today is from 3 o'clock to 4:30 p.m. But before we begin, let's go over some information about this webinar. This orientation group will operate in webinar format. Attendees will not be able to turn on their video or microphone during Mega Groups. You are counted in attendance as soon as you logged in. You do not need to follow up with us regarding attendance. If you lose connection, try to rejoin the webinar as soon as possible. You will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar. All right, let's begin. We have a very exciting group ahead of us. So let's go over today's goals. First, we'll have our opening ritual. Then we'll go into program announcements, incentive cards, and activation codes. We'll have our Friends of TAP segment with our friends from WheelWorks. We'll have a showcase of work from your small groups. Our animation industry guest speaker for today is Jonathan McCoy. And then we'll go into our closing ritual. All right, it's time to introduce my partner for the Mega Groups, Lisa Clementi.
Thanks, Lyndon. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here on this Wednesday with you all. So I'm going to lead us through our opening ritual for today. So in our small groups, Lyndon, we've been working on 3D modeling. There's been lots of talk about motion and movement. We've been talking about our favorite hobbies and pastimes. So we thought for our opening today, we'd love to hear from you. What is one of your favorite iconic dance moves? So there's going to be a link in the chat right now where you get to enter your response. So it's going to take you to another page and you get to enter in what is one of your favorite iconic dance moves. And of course, Lyndon, there's so many out there. So we only captured just a few.
Oh, can't wait to see these responses.
Yeah, me too. And of course, because there's so many iconic dance moves, we have in other categories. I'm sure there's so much out there. Oh, wow. Our chart is moving here, Lyndon.
Looks like the moonwalk is the winner.
Oh, it is. It's coming in strong. I don't know. Let's see. I also see, the Harlem Shake is coming up there. The Dougie. Oh, even the floss.
Yeah, the floss.
But no love for the funky chicken.
I know.
Not yet, at least.
Even the Running Man has one.
What would you enter in, Lyndon?
Out of all these choices, I probably would choose. Well, the easiest dance for me to do would probably be the Running Man.
I was just thinking the same thing. I love a good old Running Man.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It looks like a lot of our folks are entering in others, so I'd love to know what this other dance moves might be.
Oh yeah.
Wow. I don't know, Lyndon. I think it's pretty clear. The winner for today is the MiNYAP for sure. That's the most popular out of this group today. Wow. Well, thank you everyone for partaking in this opening ritual to get our creative flow going.
All right. It's time to go over some program announcements. Okay. So if you have received your incentive card, please remember to keep it in a safe place. If you have not received your incentive card, you will receive it by May 26th. Cards will not be loaded with funds until May 26th. You received an email with activation codes for your card today.
All right. Now for activating your card. You received an email with the activation codes and instructions today, May 26th. You may also look up your activation code on the TAP website and using the password program2. Notice there's no space in between program and the number 2. The website will be updated by the end of the day today. So if If it's not working right now, it will be ready to go by the end of today. So you can have online activation. You will do that online, and you do not need your activation code. You can also activate your card by phone. You do need the activation code provided for that. So as a reminder, this code is not your social security number or any number related to your social security number. This is a randomly generated 4-digit code unique to your card. Please note that you should reach out to TAP via email with personal questions about access codes. And on to some schedule reminders. So TAP will be closed on Memorial Day, May 31st. If you are not in a Monday small group, if you are in a Monday small group, you have 2 options to make up that session. So option 1 is you may join the Tuesday group the following day on June 1st that coordinates with your Monday group assignment. So as you can see listed here, Group 10 and Group 1 may join Group 14 on Tuesday, June 1st from 2 to 3 p.m. If you happen to be in small group 11, 2, or 3, you may join Group 15 on Tuesday, June 1st from 3:30 to 4:30. But if that doesn't work for you, option 2, you can make up the session on the TAP website. So Monday groups, you will also receive this information via email. So what happens if you missed orientation or missed a group or have incentive questions? Please visit our website, www.theanimationproject.org, and we have an FAQ page set up just for you. So in the chat now, you will see the link to our FAQ page, where hopefully you will get all of the answers that you need immediately there.
All great information. Now it's time to go into who to contact. So if you have any questions about incentives, you can contact incentives@theanimationproject.org. If you have a question about your schedule or attendance, you can contact Program 2 at theanimationproject.org. And if you want to make up a session, you can contact Program 2 at theanimationproject.org.
Wow, awesome, Lyndon. So much great information. All right, so it's that time where we get to introduce our friends of TAP, where we will be welcoming our guests who have programming that might be of interest to some of you. So our friends of TAP for this week are Vanessa Gonzalez and Lauren Annunciata from RealWorks. So welcome, you two.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. I am so happy to be here. We love TAP and we love the work that you do. And, you know, those of you who are listening in, but we can't see, hi, it's good to be talking to you. How you doing, Vanessa?
Doing good. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here and provide you information about the program. I'm Vanessa. I'm an internship coordinator here at RealWorks.
Yeah, so we're joining you from I'm joining from the RealWorks sound booth, and Vanessa is on another side of the office, but we're here together. We just are separate so we can be mask off today. But like Vanessa said, we're going to tell you a little bit about our programming. So we are RealWorks. We are a nonprofit filmmaking organization, so very similar to the work that TAP does. We do, but instead of with animation, we do it with filmmaking. So we're going to tell you about a few programs that we're currently recruiting for now, and also some programs that we'll be recruiting for in the future. So RealWorks, I think what makes us really special and what I love about our program is that we mentor our teens. So there's a one-on-one mentorship model. Students who come through our programs, they get mentored, they're trained, and they get to share their story through filmmaking. So we're all centered on our core values, which is personal storytelling. You're the best person to tell your own story, and your story is special and unique, and the world deserves to hear it. One-on-one mentoring. So like I was saying, you get matched if you're in our program with a professional filmmaker mentor who will walk you through the entire process of developing your story, going into production, and then editing and finalizing your story. And of course, everyone, we welcome diverse voices, people from different backgrounds, religions, races, gender. We love everyone and welcome everyone into our space. And of course, if you have questions, you can throw them in that Q&A. Vanessa will be checking that out, or in the chat. I'm sure we'll be able to get to it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're recruiting for right now. Our summer experimental filmmaking lab is available to rising 9th and 10th graders. So I'm going to go ahead and share a video with everyone. That's just a little bit about that program. So bear with me while I get this together. All right. Oops, maybe not. It's straight, okay. Looping again. So that is a little promo video about our experimental filmmaking course. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more in detail about what that is. So as you saw from, am I sharing the right thing? Can you see the slides, Vanessa?
It's cut off a little bit. It's not on present mode.
I don't know how to change it, so sorry everyone that it's a little stunted. Okay, so yeah, our experimental filmmaking lab, as you saw from the video, it doesn't always have a typical narrative experimental filmmaking where you have a beginning, middle, end, and there's a really clear story. You can get creative with the images and the visuals and all the different elements of storytelling that comes along with filmmaking. So this is a 4-week program for rising 9th and 10th graders. It's going to be July 6th through the 29th, 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And it's a pretty long day, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So there's going to be one cohort that's totally virtual and one that's in person. So you're able to apply for either or both, whatever works best for you. You're going to learn how to make an experimental film. So operate a camera, edit video, record sound, and learn a bit more about experimental storytelling. So at the end, you're going to have made your own experimental short film that we will screen for an audience. We're going to have an outdoor screening as well as a virtual screening, depending on what cohort you're in. So we, of course, it's totally free, the workshop. We provide equipment. Just the eligibility, again, you have to be a rising 9th or 10th grader, and our deadline to apply is June 1st. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that deadline, that application into the chat now. If you're interested and you're eligible to apply, please do. We're going to have, there's the application process and then an interview process that goes along with it. So if you're applying for the virtual workshop, the interviews will be virtual. In person, the interviews will be in person on the dates on the screen there, June 7th to the 11th or Saturday, June 12th. So please write questions if you have them in the Q&A. Vanessa and I will definitely get to those. And I'll talk to you about another program for a slightly older population. The Media Makers program is also a part of RealWorks. So this program is has an internship program and a job training program, and the goal is really to mentor and train young people like yourselves who are entering the media and entertainment industry. So I'll tell you about the two different aspects of the Media Makers program. The first is a job training program. So this is where young professionals, like you see Bianca on the screen there, looking for people who are ready to work full time, and they get trained by industry professionals for different in-demand jobs in production and in post-production. So an example, the one that you see on the screen, that is our studio mechanics bootcamp. So people trained to be electrics, and they are on a path to get union membership. So through the local 52 studio mechanics union. So we have quite a few job trainings coming up. Right now, we're running one with HBO. That's a post-production coordinator training. We're going to do another post-production coordinator training in the fall, along with the post-production supervisor training. We have a fellowship that we're running with Jigsaw Productions, a documentary filmmaking program, and then a few other under wrap job training programs that, if you're interested, we'll give you a survey at the end. Sign up if you want to stay on that, in the know about these job training programs. And then I'll pass it over to you, Vanessa, to talk about our career exploration program.
Thank you, Lauren. So another program within the Media Makers program is the Career Exploration program, where students enroll in our career exploration program to explore careers, to build personal networks through media internships. So this program is broken down into two parts. The first one being work readiness courses that are research backed by the partners we work with to prepare you for internships and opportunities. Some internship partners that we've had are Warner Media, A&E Network, Discovery, NBC Universal, and AMC Networks, among others. So a lot of big names, and our goal is really to help you build up your resumes so you can get these great opportunities. So to apply, there is some eligibility components. So you can be a part of the RealWorks programs like the Summer Experimental Lab, and that makes you a RealWorks alum, where you can apply to the Media Maker programs. We also have a partnership with CUNY. So students, we have a total of 105 students enrolled in Media Makers career exploration program across the CUNY campuses you see here on your right. So you can, again, apply to Media Makers by being a RealWorks alum or a part of a undergraduate program at CUNY.
Awesome, thanks, Vanessa. So that is our spiel here. I'm going to also, let's see, drop in the chat a link to our YouTube page that you can check out. And Vanessa, if you wouldn't mind throwing in the chat as well, our link to, this is our, to our interest survey. So if you're interested in any of these programs and learning more information, go ahead and fill out that Google form that Vanessa just put in the chat, and we will reach out to you with more details. And if you are interested in learning more about our students and the films they've made, you could check out YouTube, our channel on YouTube. I did see a question about if you apply for the career exploration program, can you mention you're with the animation project? Please do, absolutely. We love this program and we love all of you that are part of it. So we definitely want to prioritize you if you do apply. So usually there's a section on our application where you can fill it out. But if there's not, in like anything else we should know, definitely always put that. But I didn't see any other questions. So, be in touch with us. I know that our contact information was dropped in here. We're always happy to connect with you. So that's all from us. Thanks for having us.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your information with us. It was really great hearing from you.
Of course. Thanks for having us. Bye, everyone.
All right, everyone. It's time for us to transition into our showcase. Let's check out some of the work that was created in our small groups.
Wow, how amazing. Thank you everyone for sharing your creativity with us. Your storyboards are just out of this world. So much skill, so much movement, Lyndon. Wow.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Those were amazing. I really look forward to seeing them every single week. It's amazing. Thanks, everyone. All right, it's actually time for us to transition to our guest speaker segment. I'm going to pass it on to Kat Golaski, TAB's Industry Outreach Advisor.
Thank you very much, Lyndon, and thank you to everyone who submitted your wonderful artwork for our showcase. Such incredible work, and we really appreciate that you have shared your incredible projects within the space. It's my genuine pleasure to welcome the lovely Jonathan McCoy into this Zoom room, as it were. Jonathan, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us as well. Jonathan is a CG artist at Lively. Prior to that, he's worked at PsyOp and The Mill, having worked as a CG modeler and look development artist. Jonathan, I'd love, if you don't mind, you're kindly rejoining us this afternoon, and would love to have you share your story with our participants, how you got into the industry and what prompted you to pursue computer graphics.
Absolutely. So it started, I went to school at a university called RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, up in Rochester, New York. I've always been, even like as a young kid, I've always been really interested in media, whether it be your regular movies, your animated movies, whether it be Cartoon Network movies, anime, things of that nature. So my natural kind of interest shifted towards I wonder how these are made. I wonder what I could if someone can make money doing this sort of thing, right? Make a living and through their passion. And so I went to school for it and ended up being fortunate enough to start working at the Mill, which is this lovely content creation. They do ads, they do short form, they do a whole bunch of different things, and spent a bit of time there, and then ended up bouncing from there to PsyOp, and then ultimately where I work now, which is a place called Lively Studios in New York City.
Awesome, thank you. And can you kindly share with us a little bit about Lively as a studio? What sort of projects you work on? How large the studio is? I'd love for you to share that with our wonderful participants.
Absolutely. So when I first got to Lively, I was a little impressed because they do quite a good quality of work, but they're, as far as personnel, it's a pretty small studio. I came from the Mill, which has like a few hundred people. Lively has maybe about, in total across all departments, maybe around 50 plus, give or take. And the department I work in is maybe maybe it's somewhere like 6 to 9 people strong, give or take. The type of work we do, it kind of falls along the lines of storytelling and presenting like the brand of certain products, things you might see like makeups or lotions, or depending on what the project calls for, we kind of bring that to the forefront and kind of make it shine, make the message behind the product shine, and so on and so forth.
Awesome, thank you. And what sort of, I'm quite curious to hear a bit about your perspective, working from a much larger studio and then essentially transitioning into a more smaller space. How has that been for you?
It's been interesting. The large studio space was like very informative because there's, just by sheer number of people, walking by any specific row of desks, you're going to see someone doing something. Wait, what are you doing there? How did you do that? People are generally very friendly, and you're able to, kind of observe and see different people's different processes, which is super interesting. Being in a small studio, oftentimes you end up doing a lot of many things, as opposed to like, if you're a large studio, maybe one person's tasked with modeling in one project, which is just creating all the assets and all the things that end up in the final, moving picture. And maybe someone else animates those things. Maybe someone else is tasked with, making it look good and all those sort of things. But at a smaller studio, like for example, Lively, a lot of times, you might be on a team of 3 or 4 people, depending on the scope of the project. Maybe it's just you working on it only. But ultimately, you end up doing more. And as a result, sometimes you end up learning more. That's been my experience so far.
Thank you for sharing. Now, I'm conscious that you brought a couple of projects to talk through with our group here. With that said, though, I'd love to sort of have you expand upon your role as a computer graphics artist, what that means, what that looks like within the world of post-production, so as to offer our crew here some context as to your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of times, I'm sure people have seen movies like, Pixar movies, like, I don't know, blanking on Pixar movies right now, but like Frozen's Disney, but you know, for all intents and purposes, things like that. So where everything is very clearly, you know, computer generated, it's very stylized, very kind of cartoony. But then you also have certain things like, for example, makeup commercials where maybe you might have like what they describe as a hero shot where the product is framed like, you know, dead in the center of the screen, and it has like, it's kind of showcasing it. Or you might have something, for example, where, you know, you have like an effect, like maybe a scene in a movie where they shot a scene where the person's in the rain, but it wasn't raining that day. So they add it later on and with CG and some, you know, compositing techniques or whatever. And so that's kind of in the vein of things of which like we would do.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Well, I guess I'll let you hit the ground running, and perhaps if you wanted to share your screen on a project or 2 or 3 that you wanted to share with the group so as to offer some visuals as to what you've been working on.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So these are, I kind of just grabbed a quick selection of 3 spots we've worked on here at Lively. So let me just get that queued up.
Very excited to see them. I can imagine some of them involved quite a hefty schedule or quite a hefty commitment of.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because once you get it all together, you're like, oh, that was totally worth it, because you know the end result is wonderful. Let's see. All right, so this is a spot we did for.
New Cetaphil Sheer Hydration Body Collection gives skin lightweight, 48-hour hydration it loves.
So that's one.
Awesome. What sort of time frame did you have to work on this project, and what did you?
So for this one, it was interesting. I'm trying to remember how long we had, because I want to say maybe about maybe somewhere around like a month, give or take, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, give or take. And so there was a lot of, the thing about like a spot like this, it seems super simple. It's like what, 6 seconds long, but there's also different, you know, there's different cuts for, like, for example, you're doing ads for Instagram, you're doing ads for, like, you know, TikTok, you're also doing like stuff for TV, you're doing stuff for the web and all that stuff. And all those things have to be kind of treated in a slightly different way. So you have maybe, you know, like this dimension, but then obviously for a phone, it's kind of more vertical. I always confuse vertical and horizontal, but it's a little more vertical. So you have to kind of trim it a different way and treat the you know, the treatment is slightly different. And you have several different departments working on it. So you have like, you know, colorists who kind of get the color right. You have, so for example, this element is, you know, CG onto the live action footage, which is quite challenging. But as you can see, like once you get it all working perfectly, it, you know, sells the effect that they're trying to convey, the story that they're trying to tell throughout the, you know, the spot. And then here you have, you know, CG products. So this is something that was like created inside of a computer. And then the look was developed so that people could look at it and say, okay, this actually looks like a plastic bottle and not like, I don't know, something, kind of sell the effect and sell how it would look in real life. So when you go to the store, you go, oh, that's how it looks like. I've seen that before. And so it's all in service to the story of what the product does and what the advertiser is trying to tell the consumer that this is good for. Yeah.
How big is the team on this particular project?
This project, this one was done a little while ago. So I think maybe it was about, I worked on it with, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 other people. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely. So we've got another one. This is an example of something that was done for the web, like an Instagram ad. So as you see, as opposed to how the other one was kind of formatted for TV. So it was like, you know, rectangular this way. This is formatted for the phone, which is rectangular the other way. And it just kind of shows kind of the different moods that it's trying to evoke. Like this is more of like an elegant, fancy, you know, dark, mysterious sort of spot. And it's quite short, but I think it sells the effect quite nice. Like all these bits here, this here, this subtle sort of lighting, all that stuff is very nice. So yeah.
Yeah, it's quite gorgeous to watch as well on loop.
Yeah, it's like an art installation almost. Very pleased with how this came out. Like the team that worked on it, like really did a great job. I was working on this as well. I helped kind of create let's see, the product itself and this effect here, and this one as well, which came out quite nice. So
awesome. And when was this a pretty recent spot that you guys worked on?
yeah, this is I think this was late last year. Fairly recent. So.
Awesome. Now I'm starting to see some of our wonderful participants are starting to populate the Q&A with some really great questions. So I want to encourage everyone to share your questions and share your queries with us, because we'd like to be able to ensure that Jonathan can get to as many questions as possible for you all.
The final spot here, this is something that we did, I think also quite recently. I think it posted February of this year. So I think it's the most recent one I have to date. So awesome. We watch this.
Lash impact goes sky high. New Lash Sensational Sky High Mascara from Maybelline, New York. Limitless length plus volume. Sensational from every angle. New Lash Sensational Sky High Mascara. Only from Maybelline, New York. Lash.
So that's that.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
Yeah.
And what can you tell me about this particular spot?
So this one was interesting because it does a lot of like, I mean, it's super elegant, high energy, kind of suave. So you have this lady throwing this product up into the air. And so this shot here is CG over, again, say CG over live action. A lot of the things that we do in like ads and TV shows and movies is trying to get, whatever the CG element to kind of match as seamlessly as possible with the environment. I think we were able to kind of get that effect going quite well with this. So I was kind of tasked with helping with the rendering and the kind of final end results of this CG element, so that when they took it and put it over this background, it would kind of feel at home and so as you can see, there's a lot of sort of effects. It's not as obvious, but you have like this kind of like subtle depth of field that's happening to kind of merge into the background, which is blurred out due to how far away it is. And also you have like, this demo of how the brush works and how it kind of smears the product and how it would, kind of perform if you were using the product itself. So all these kind of story elements are merged fairly seamlessly. Then you have also this really great shot where it kind of falls to the air, and then see, she catches it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's this back and forth between computer generated imagery and then like the live action shot footage from a camera, all on the purpose of like telling a story.
Wonderful, thank you. Wanted to get a sense for what sort of timeline you had for this particular project, being that it was one of the more recent ones.
Interesting. This one was a bit shorter, I believe. So I believe maybe, well, actually I say shorter, but it was probably around the same amount of time, about 3 to 4 weeks of actual production time, because a lot of times you'll have the pre-production aspect, which is, you have meetings with the client, the person who is like kind of commissioning you to do this work. And they'll say, we want this, we'd like this, here are some of our influence. And, you kind of go back and forth and kind of get to understand what they need, because ultimately you're in service to the client. You both are collaborating on this vision. And at the end of it, the ideal situation is that they love it, you're proud of it. And then, it's an optimal experience. You guys can work together again. And so you have that pre-production sort of situation where they're hashing things out, figure out what the vision for the end result is. Then you kind of start working on it in the production stage. And, throughout however long time you have, whether it's 2 weeks, a month and a half, however long it takes, you're working on it and you're kind of, checking back in with the client, like saying, hey, just to make sure we're on the same page vision-wise, here's what we made. You like it? And they go, yeah, we love it. We had a vision for maybe the background being a little more like this, or, the products in our mind has this more elegant thing. So maybe we make it feel more elegant in this way or that way. And so in that way, it's a collaborative process from pretty much from beginning to end. You're working on, okay, here's the start, here's the finish, here's the start, and how do we make it get to the vision the client wants?
Mm-hmm. Very nicely said. Brianna, who's one of our wonderful participants, is wondering what has been your favorite project to date?
Ooh.
I would like to ask why.
It's a good question. It hasn't shipped yet, but there's a project that I worked on where I was pretty much from start to finish kind of a part of the process. I did a bit of animation, I did a bit of modeling, I did a bit of lighting, just the whole from and like soup to nuts worked on it. And it was really nice because it was you know, as it was kind of the first project where I was really responsible from beginning to end, because normally it's collaborative. You know, I'm working, maybe I model something, the other person lights it, the other person textures it. It's like 3 or 4 people. But for this one, it was small enough that I was able to kind of handle it on my own. And it was great because it kind of really boosted my feelings of like, okay, I can definitely do this. You know, like if I needed to rock something out on my own, that's really great. And it kind of also taught me that sometimes the best way to gain confidence is just to, you know, get your boots a little muddy and just go through it, you know? And for that reason, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Javon's also wondering, how is the experience in working with others? So I think this was in reference to the very first spot where you're mentioning that there were 2 or 3 other artists on that particular project. How has that collaboration been for you?
It's great. I really enjoy it because, first of all, like I think 99.999% of people that I've met, just working like in this industry, it's like everyone's super kind, super helpful, and everyone comes from wildly different backgrounds. So some people are like, I was a history major, or I didn't go to school at all, but I, you know, I met someone and I just started working in this and I really love it. And so everyone is coming from this rich background, and sometimes, you know, they're coming from like a mindset of a historian. So the way they might be like, oh, you know, historically colors were used like this. So when I attack an ad or when I work on this movie spot, I think of it historically. So people are like, oh, I come from an art background. Like I did a lot of art in high school. I did a lot of art when I was younger. And so when I think of arts, I think about like, you know, the color wheel or complementary colors. And so working with other people, it really kind of opens, at least for me, it's opened my mind to really just looking at things in a different way, being like, oh, there's another way of looking at this, as opposed to just, you know, my personal background, my personal biases. And also just the fact that working together, it makes the job sometimes a little more pleasant. Because sometimes, you know, you're working on, you want to be in love with everything you're working on, but sometimes some jobs are great, but, you know, maybe the deadline is really tight, so you got to work really hard. And, you know, working like shoulder to shoulder with some great people really makes the time pass in the most pleasant way.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm conscious you are working remotely at this time. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So what does your, you know, working in a remote space, obviously working at home or whatnot, what does your day-to-day look like from, let's say, morning until end of day?
Oh man. So normally I'd have a really well put together schedule, but as of late, I've kind of slumped into not the best habits, but ideally I would wake up, you know, somewhat early, you know, do some reading, kind of set my mind right for the day. You know, maybe depending on how I'm feeling, maybe have breakfast, start work. You know, we start with a bit of a morning meeting, just kind of like rally together and be like, okay, so-and-so's working on this, I'm working on this. We'll have another meeting maybe sometime around 4:30 in the afternoon, but then we're working through the day, have a nice sort of hour-long lunch break in the middle where I try to make a point to, especially since now it's really nice and I'm looking out the window, it's beautiful. So wonderful. Yes, it's awesome. So like just being able to like go outside and take a walk, which kind of helps sometimes to really just instill a sense of context, because I find sometimes I get very like pulled in work and I'm by nature like very perfectionistic. And so I'm like, oh, this has to be perfect, this has to be perfect, this has to be perfect. And like being able to step aside and step outside and go for a walk, come back in and be like, oh, you know, it's, you know, perfect is great, but this is where it needs to be. You're doing great. Don't even worry about it. And being able to like focus without, you know, losing my mind about it. So after lunch break, you know, you work again till about 6 p.m. And after that, normally I would, you know, I try to have some sort of extracurricular activities, whether it be, you know, like reading books or playing video games or, you know, studying languages, whatever sort of thing I'm feeling up to in the moment. You know, that's something that I kind of use to unwind in the evening, and then, you know, that time and start the cycle again Monday through Friday.
Thank you. It's always really important, and you're highlighting a really healthy work-life balance, that you're sort of taking advantage of this remote time. And I think that's really wonderful and great advice. Any challenges that you're experiencing working remotely? I'm curious about that process, because I know sometimes you're on tight delivery or tight delivery deadlines. I can't speak this after.
It's all good. Me too.
We'll work through this together.
Yeah.
But like, you know, are there any challenges that you're experiencing now working in a remote setting that you wouldn't have had if you were all working together in the same?
Oh man. So yeah, I would say so. it's very interesting because it's kind of a mixed bag, because the greatest part is like it kills the commute. Like, and sometimes, you know, like as sometimes great the commute is, you go over the bridge, you get to look over, you're like, oh, this is beautiful, I love this. Sometimes you're like crammed up to like some person's armpit who, you know, maybe has some questionable hygiene. So that part I'm glad to be separated from for now. Uh, but at the same time, there is that aspect of like when quarantine first started, I had to really kind of be intentional. Wow, words.
Jonathan, I'm so sorry.
It's all good. I had to work on being intentional about, okay, it's 6 o'clock. This project isn't due anytime soon. It's okay for me to end at normal working hours. It's like, you know, if you're home, sometimes you're just like, I can work another hour. Like, I mean, if I need to, you know, I'm home. If I need to go and do something, I can do it later, but I'm not really doing anything right now, so I could just work. But having those clear boundaries and setting those is a really good way of making sure that you don't burn out, making sure that you're able to bring fresh new ideas. Because a lot of times inspiration comes from other places. Like maybe you're playing a video game, you're like, that's a really great effect. And I think my boss is working on a project. This might be a good effect for that project. You can bring it, but maybe you wouldn't have that if you didn't have those outside interests. So it's really good to, you know, have that balance. And that was something that I initially kind of struggled with. Additionally, the aspect of, you know, sometimes that isolation by nature of being socially isolated, right? Because of, you know, COVID and all that stuff. Sometimes, at least for me, I tend to take that a little too far where I'm like, okay, I'm focused on work, focused on life. I don't have to reach out to anyone. But I think it's really important to be plugged into, whether you're a part of a community of faith or like just friends and family and all that stuff, and just keeping in contact with that community. Because by nature, we're social creatures, and we really need the people around us as much as, like, you know, sometimes you watch a Hollywood movie and the person's like, I don't need anyone, I'm a lone wolf. And no, we're people. We need that social interaction. So
100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. What are some things that Lively is doing, or that your department is doing, with which to keep a sense of togetherness? I'd like to get a sense, you know, I've heard rumors here and there, and I'm just curious, you know, do you get to spend time online together when you're not working as well? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty great. It's super interesting how adaptable we've been, just as far as like carrying over that company culture. Like you know, like on some days, like they'll have like a, you know, just like for fun, like a game night where everyone kind of gathers around the metaphorical Zoom campfire and plays some sort of like a card game or whatever. And also sometimes they'll have a kind of like a loose social, sometimes with just the department, sometimes with the company. We kind of just, you know, sit back and chat and relax. And it's kind of a nice way of, because sometimes, you know, when it's in the heat of the project or whatever, you know, you get to talk to people, but it's mostly like business. But other times it's like when it's a little more relaxed, we're able to kind of sit down and, you know, sort of gather around. It's really nice to kind of be able to, oh, so, you know, you have a cat. Oh, that's really cool. Oh man, you know, what are you working on this side? Oh, that's great. So it's able to still have that social element without it just being all work. So it's been quite nice. It's obviously it's no replacement for, like, you know, talking to people in person, but it's quite a nice in between for sure.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's also really important in establishing like a really healthy team dynamic. What are some advice you might have for our participants to get into the world of computer graphics, and to sort of, for those who'd like to pursue, you know, modeling or texturing, or pursue CG as a rule? Like, what are some thoughts that you might have with which to, you know, to get into the industry?
That's a good question. I would say, well, I think the great thing is with the internet, there's like a lot of ways, like, you know, first of all, if you just go to YouTube, I mean, even now, being a professional in my field, I learned so much off of YouTube. It's funny, I was just talking with my boss, and he was like, yo, check out this video, I found these really cool things. And of course it's on YouTube. So we're watching these really cool tutorials, learning about all this new technology off of YouTube. So it's very helpful. You can find, you know, if you're a student somewhere, you can get like a license for like maybe Autodesk Maya if you're interested in 3D modeling or animation or whatever. Of course, Blender is free. You can use Blender, like just literally go to, I think it's blender.org, and just download the program, and it works right out of the box. And just kind of start familiarizing yourself with the program, because sometimes I've had people who really thought that they wanted, like, I'm going to be a 3D animator, and that's what my goal is my dream. And they start actually physically doing it. They're like, I kind of want to be behind the camera more. I thought it'd be more like that. So they are able to pivot and start actually like, maybe shooting film or shooting pictures, or maybe they want to be a producer. So I think it's very important to, kind of get in there and try stuff so that, if you love it, you love it. If you don't love it, you can at least kind of maybe find something that's like somewhat related and that you can kind of transition to. I also think it's important if you're trying to get into, because most, again, back to human interaction, like we're people. So we like working with people that we like. And so it's good to kind of, if you're able to reach out to people, it may feel a little uncomfortable, like, oh, I'm going to email this person and just tell them, hey man, I love your work. I'm interested in getting to this field. Here's some of my work. But people love that. People like being appreciated. Like if someone says, man, I really like your work. Like I saw that you worked on, I don't know, the last Transformer or the last, Disney movie. Like I really like that. Here's my work so far. What tips can you give? Some people are really busy, so they might not reply. But some people are very gracious. Like I personally reach out to people, they give me like, invaluable, really great advice. And another, I know I'm kind of running long at the mouth, but
very, very helpful.
I think another beneficial thing is not being afraid to start like fairly low. Like for me, I started as a runner, which is not intern level. It's not, it's not junior artist level. It's the level for that, where you're more or less, helping out in the studio setting. Like you're not doing any sort of art things as of yet, but you're delivering drinks, like whether it be like coffee or tea to the clients. You're, help cleaning up the suites as they're, leaving and entering, and making sure that you're the hospitality front, or the assistant to the hospitality front. And at first I was like, okay, this is good, but I don't know how necessarily it's related, but whatever. But it turns out that by, for lack of a better word, schmoozing, you get to know what each department does. And maybe you're like, oh, I'm really curious about color. What do color do? And maybe, if you're working somewhat later in the afternoon because you're cleaning or whatever, and you might strike up a conversation with a colorist, and they'll be like, this is what I do. This is how I move colors. This is how I use colors to tell a story. Or, you're talking to a 3D artist, and like, this is a program that I'm messing with. You should try it. And just by merit of, mingling with the people and working around them, you build some really, really great relationships. Like, I mean, some people that I met while running, I keep contact with these people to this day. So it's invaluable. A lot of times the issue isn't being, not being good enough. It's not knowing enough people. So the more people that the better off you are.
Yeah, that's very nicely said. And you also earlier touched upon reaching out to people, that made me sort of think about the importance of mentorship within the industry and finding someone who might be able to be a mentor or help guide you throughout that process. Do you have a mentor in your career? And if so, how do you interact with this person, and how did you find a mentor? Because I'm conscious that, especially in this industry, especially as we're more isolated at this time, like, I think there's so much more of a focus in wanting to be in communication and in really trying to receive that sense of support. So I'm just curious as to your thoughts, not to make this a very long-winded question, but hopefully you get the what I'm trying to
prepare for a long-winded answer.
Yes, perfect. Keep the balance, Jonathan. Keep the balance.
Yes. I would say I'm very fortunate because I'm able to learn from quite a few people. Like I think of our mutual friend, like Paul Liao, like whenever I have like modeling stuff, like it's the point now where like, so I'll find something I'll share with him and he'll be like, hey, here's something you might want to do. But normally if I have questions about modeling, which is kind of like my baseline of like where I started out, where my passion kind of started from, I always kind of consult him and he gives me really, really good advice. And I'm really grateful for like just his mentorship and his like years of wisdom as well. Also, it doesn't hurt that he's a really cool guy.
Agreed,
also,
100% agreed.
Oh yeah, what a guy. Another friend who I worked with when I was little, Weiche. He's very, very generous with knowledge, very intelligent, very smart guy. As far as like things past modeling, so like lighting and texturing and look dev and all this stuff, all the other kind of steps in the pipeline. Sometimes I end up like naturally being like, how did you do that? It looks beautiful. You'd be like, oh, this is what I did. I did all this stuff, and it's like, oh, great. I'm also fairly like fortunate that like my boss at the current company, Lawrence, he's really, really smart, and like he knows how to get things done really quickly, and like also he's also again a common theme, very free with knowledge. So he'll be like, okay, this is what I did, this is how I did it. Here, let me show you real quick. Let me run you through the steps really quickly. So in my personal opinion, I think I forgot it was someone told me that oftentimes you just have to ask the person who knows the thing that you need to learn. So sometimes it might be nice to have like the one wizened, the wise, wizardly guy who just dispenses wisdom on all subjects, but maybe you're not able to find that. But maybe one person who's really great at cameras, or maybe one person who's really great at how to make animation look believable and alive. Maybe someone knows how to make like a face or a drawing like super appealing, and maybe that's 3 or 4 different people. It's okay to kind of seek mentorship from different people, because sometimes, I mean, life is long, but sometimes people just focus on one thing and they're just wizardly at that one thing. So sometimes it's just great to focus or spend time with that person if you're trying to learn that one thing, and then spend time with that other person trying to learn the other thing. And I think that's also something good to think about.
That is something to think about. Thank you. Emma was asking earlier, as you started to talk about how you went to school at Rochester Institute of Technology, or RIT, she's wondering, how was your experience there, considering it was more of an engineering-focused school? I'd love to get your perspective from an artistic perspective, like, how your time was there.
It's interesting. I tend to think that most of the time when it comes to universities, it's a really good place to get introduced to a lot of base concepts, and also just really good to like meet people who are starting at the ground level like you are, because if you've ever been in a field, every level of the ground is different, maybe some places are deeper. Like, I mean, where I started from, I didn't really know anyone in the industry, but some people that I knew were like, yeah, my cousin's mother's brother's aunt is a recruiter, I know them. Or like, yeah, my uncle, he's been working at DreamWorks for however long, and so you get to know these people. And similar to like when you're working in the field, you get to kind of understand like, oh, they're different, different people who know different people, and here's what this person wants to do. This person wants to be a producer. What the heck is a producer? I never even heard of that, or like, oh, this person wants to be like a TD. What is a TD? You start kind of like learning all these things. And then at the same time, you have these teachers who are giving you like this really great springboard where you can kind of jump off from. Like, okay, you guys have never opened this program called Maya or 3ds Max. Here, crank it open. Here's where all the buttons are. Now go and make something. Okay, that's good, but here's a way to make it better. And you're kind of going through the steps, kind of like you're learning to walk before you get out the door and you start really kind of just running. So even though it was an engineering school, they had a pretty good and fairly robust like introductory program to the field. Like the teachers who are there are like super dedicated, super great, like Atia and Mark Reich, like they're wonderful. So yeah, love them to this day.
Massive fans of theirs, and it's a wonderful program. Curious as to what the next stages are, steps are for your career. Like, what do you aspire to as your next step? I've seen in full transparency, I've seen your career grow almost exponentially in just a very short period of time.
Thank you.
So what's next for you?
First of all, thank you. That's very flattering, because sometimes I get like really like laser focused, and I'm like, oh, I haven't got, but then like, zooming out, it's like, whoa, so I guess my one of my main goals is I just really want to keep going. I've had sort of small opportunities here and there to kind of be in more leadership positions, but I just really like, I like kind of getting in with the nitty gritty and just making things look beautiful, just making really cool things in service to a greater story. And I'm really kind of fascinated by the real-time technology. So for example, like Unreal Engine, and I think we have a few mutual friends who've worked either with the folks over at Epic Games or people who've worked with the technology. Yeah, to make like just really beautiful stuff and really cool things. And so like that's kind of piqued my interest, and I'm kind of starting to really get in and try to sort through what possibilities there are in that, as far as like storytelling and things of that nature. Also just kind of learning more technology and just kind of growing more of my skills, because my whole sort of dream is to be somewhat of a bit of a jack of all trades, master of few, not master of none, but master of few. So, just trying to learn as much as I can, because I feel like, again, the more things that the more that when you're, when you have a task to do, or when you're trying to create something in service of a story or in service of a project that you're really passionate about, you can bring that wealth of knowledge and kind of really make it something special.
Very nicely said. Could you please expand a little bit about the real-time piece, just in terms of, like, for those within our audience who might want to pursue, let's say, Unreal as a software, or could you sort of perhaps offer some context for the group?
Sure. So So Unreal Engine, it's this interesting thing. It initially was just like a game engine, just like you know, your Unities or your whatever other sort of game engines are out there, and it's still very much used for that. But in recent times, both Unity and Unreal, they started using it for like automobile showcasing. So, oh, here's our car. It's beautiful. Look at it in these different settings, like it's on a mountain road. But that's all through the game engine. You know, stuff like films. There's a couple of like people on YouTube who are using it like to an incredible level to make these beautiful, cinematic, gorgeous movies. And the main advantage for it is that essentially, if you're doing CGI with in the traditional way, you end up sort of, you know, you make the product, or you make the scene, like you're making an environment or a character, and then you have to take the time to render it. Now, the rendering, you know, computer's got to kind of think through each part of the image frame and say, okay, this part, this part, this part. And that takes a bit of time. However, with real time, because it's a game, and I don't know if any of you have played a game, it's pretty instantaneous. You know, you're running through a world, you know, like Minecraft, wherever you're just running through the world, it's automatically all there. And so the trade-off is great in terms of speed and being able to get something that looks good without having to spend a lot of time waiting for it to sort of, you know, bake out of the program. And so for that reason, a lot of people have been really kind of drawn to it, and it's really started to balloon and expand into this amazing opportunity. And, you know, shows like The Mandalorian have used it extensively for, like, you know, even just backgrounds, like getting like environment really quickly and without having to be, okay, we got to put it in later in an older, you know, sort of way. So it's quite possibly looking to be the future of technology and imaging and all those sort of things. It's very exciting.
It is very exciting. I really appreciate you sharing that. Want to get a sense from your end as well, like, you know, what inspires you? Where do you seek sources of inspiration? You know, I think it's always important as artists that regardless of how senior we are or how junior we are, it's really important for us to continue to motivate ourselves, you know, outside of the workplace. You know, I know you and I've spoken in the past about how, you know, you're doing something that you really love very much. And, you know, and how do you find that balance, you know, with also finding those sources of inspiration? And as you think about, you know, how best you'd like to respond to this, I do want to encourage our participants to ask more questions if there are a few thoughts, because we still have a bit of time and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. You know, it's sometimes it's just a matter of, for me personally, I really just like talking to people, like, just like, even like if I'm on the train and someone just starts talking and I'm just like, hey, how's it going? Like, you just learn so much about the world. It's nice that plays into, you know, how your mind kind of starts processing things in a new and different way. Obviously, you have the various forms of media. Like, I try to, you know, every now and again I play like a new or different type of video game, or you know, watch a different movie or a TV show. You know, even sometimes in genres that are like not even like necessarily designed for me. Like, you know, oh, this is like I don't know, like this is the story about an old man. Like, I'm not an old man, I think, but I mean, yeah, not for now, right?
Not for a while.
Thank you. But like, you know, it's a story about, like, I don't know, the heartbreak of an old man who's going through, like, you know, things of someone in that generation. But, you know, maybe it's not relatable to my story, but I watch it anyway because, like, oh, this is going to teach me something. Same thing with like books or comics. You know, like, maybe this is the demographic for this comic is not as for me, but maybe I can learn something about it. Maybe I can learn something about the world or how stories are told, or you know, symbolism or this, that, or the third. And, you know, if you're making commercials for like makeup and lotions, probably like, what does that have to do with that at all? But you'd be surprised how sometimes, you know, just visual language just carries across several different medium types. So I find that very, very valuable.
100%. Justin's wondering, and this is a really great question, because I think it sort of differs depending upon the studio. What do you do when you don't have anything to work on? So let's say, you know, you're booked, you're full time within a studio. What do you do within Lively if you don't have anything to work on, if you're not scheduled on an official project?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, you know, you can take the time and do kind of any number of things. So obviously, first of all, you're gonna have to like train your mind and body to sort of slow down, because you're not in a, you know, like if you're not working on a project, you're not in that production mode. So sometimes when you get production mode, you get very like, okay, I gotta get this done, you get very like, you know, fast paced. It's okay to slow down and kind of realign to like, kind of get back down to baseline as far as like what you normally do. Because sometimes it can get very intense, you're working late, you have to get up early, yada, yada, yada. But you want to kind of bring yourself back down to baseline and take the time to relax. That's very important as well. You don't want to be in a full action mode at all times. And secondly, what I tend to do is sometimes, for example, I kind of do a bit of a mental postmortem. And if any of you know like what a postmortem is, it's kind of like, whatever you just finished, you kind of look back, okay, what did I have trouble with? Okay, what did I work on there that, okay, I didn't really, like I had to kind of rough it through figuring out how this is. What if there's any documentation on that? So you can, kind of take it, not like take it easy, but kind of like relax a little bit. Also, you're trying to prepare for what comes up next, or if you have anything similar to what you just came out of. And also sometimes, I'll see other people working on stuff in the next project, and I'll be like, hey, what program are you using for that? Like, what method are you using for that? I can kind of like start gently bothering my coworkers about like the technologies that they're working on, and start, kind of exchanging information. Like, oh, I saw you really did really good on the job we just came off of. Where'd you learn that? Like, oh, we found this tutorial series, or oh, I downloaded this brush pack, and here's this. So you're able to kind of like kind of rejuvenate, but also prepare. It's kind of like for lack of a better analogy, like it's kind of like if you were a soldier, right? Like when you're in active duty, you're in the moment, you're doing all the stuff. But then once you're kind of like, the battle's over, you reload your gear, you try to see if anything's missing, what could I have done better? You maybe rendezvous with your squad, whatever it may be. So things of that nature.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. I am getting a question or two about animation, but I'm conscious obviously that you like to focus on specific aspects of CG that may not correspond to animation right now. Do you ever have an interest in animating, or have you ever had an interest in animating? That's just more my own curiosity.
I do. I think my issue right now is kind of like my eyes are bigger than my stomach, where it's just like there's all this stuff that I'm like, oh, it's really cool to learn. But then, there's only 24 hours in a day. So I'm kind of focusing on, but in recent years, I've been doing a bit more animation than in the past, like nothing like super complex, like character animation, like sort of simple product animation, your motion, sort of motion design type animation. And I find that quite interesting. And I hope that in the future, I'll kind of be able to branch out more to that, because it's, once you get a really satisfying movement or really satisfying sequence of animation, there's nothing else like it. It's really awesome.
Absolutely. I'm conscious that this is a question I like to ask a lot of our industry guest professionals as they spend some time with us. And I think I asked you this last time you were here, but kind of want to get a sense, particularly during these times. And I feel like, we're coming out of a really, a really heavy time. And, when so many of us have been through, very isolated living situations or uncomfortable home situations. And, just I'm curious from your perspective, what are some coping mechanisms or strategies that you worked with this past year during the pandemic, as it were, and how did you implement them, if that makes sense?
That's a good question. I would say that the thing that took me the longest to really kind of internalize is just realizing like this is, and I hate this phrase so much, but it's an unprecedented time. Like it's not something that's happened before, And so if you do something that's wrong, like be patient with yourself. Like it's okay. Like this is your first time going through anything like this before. Like if you look at the president, if you look at like anyone, like people are like, I've never lived through anything like this. This is like weird. I hope I make the right choice. Everyone's going through it. Everything's going through the same thing. And sometimes we're human. We're liable to maybe make a misstep or a misjudgment, and that's okay. Just, acknowledge and go, okay, I can do better later on. Just extending that grace to myself is something that like I really had to work at, and just really, okay, right here I am. Okay, it's cool. All right, I'll do better tomorrow. It's fine, Also just making time for myself is also very important, because it's very easy. It's weird because, right, we're isolated, we're kind of in our own space. You think we'd be able to just make time for ourselves, no problem. But at the same time, it's a challenge to literally just take the time and sit with yourself, whether it be like meditating or just taking that time to really be with yourself and collect your thoughts and collect your energy. Because a lot of times if you're going through the day, I gotta make food, I gotta make sure I'm getting good grades, make sure I'm doing my work, make sure I'm doing all this stuff. That's a lot of energy going out from you. And sometimes it pays off to really sit with yourself and collect your energy so that you have something to give. It's kind of like if you are continuously pouring from a cup, but you never take the time to refill it. After a while, it's gonna run dry.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. As we sort of wind down our time together, is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd love to share within this space, or is there something in terms of advice for our wonderful participants you might want to offer them as we leave one another this afternoon? You're already full of so much wisdom and advice. I don't know, I think, we didn't acknowledge this earlier in our conversation, but you and I spent some time together at a studio at the Mill, and your effervescent energy and personality and genuine interest in the process was really, really palpable throughout the space. And I found so many of our coworkers just really loved working with you because of your approach to the day-to-day. So just kind of wanted to get a sense from your perspective, if there's anything else we haven't covered that you'd love to share.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. Every time I hear it, I'm just like, what? Really? But it's it's so great. Thank you so much. I'd say that I've got a couple of things I'd say. The first is, no matter how tough the situation is or how like terrible it is, this isn't just like work things, it's just like life things, don't let the situation or the person who's giving you a hard time like steal your joy, because if you're able to move through life with joy, and it's hard, don't get me wrong, like, there's some days where you just throw up your hands and it's tough, but if you're able to maintain like that sense of like, okay, like things are tough, but they're gonna get better. It's so funny. I was talking to a friend of mine actually like yesterday, and she was saying something to the effect of like, sometimes we're in a situation where it's not just painful, it's agony, right? Whether it's, God forbid, the death of a loved one, or terrible financial times, or hard to get a job. Just remember two things. If you're able to remember two things, you'll be able to get through it. The first is, it's probably going to be terrible, agonizing suffering. But the second thing is that it's temporary. It's not something that's going to be there forever. It's something that you're going to be able to pass through. And once you pass through, that experience will allow you to help the people that you come in contact with in the future. And that's a really beautiful gift. As weird as to say that suffering is a gift, but in a way it can be if you're able to use it to help and bless other people. And the second, oh yeah, thank you. Shout out to my friend. And the second thing is, I would say, and this kind of works in and out of the field that we're in, but treat absolutely everyone with respect. Everyone deserves respect, whether it's your boss, whether it's the person who comes in and like cleans the desks after hours, like whoever it is, give everyone like just the most respect, and your life will be better, even if they don't like do anything for you or whatever. It's just really, 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 really good advice. And like, the more that you give, the more that you receive as far as respect goes. And it costs you nothing.
Absolutely costs you nothing.
And I'd say the last thing, I know I said the last thing is the last thing, but yeah, if you have something that you're passionate with or passionate about, make sure you take breaks, because it's very easy to kind of go full, just full focus at the neglect of health, family, everything. But after a while, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna be isolated, you're not gonna feel as good, your mental health is gonna suffer, your physical health might suffer. So it's okay to take breaks. It doesn't mean you're not committed, it just means that you care about yourself as well, which is your number one investment. You want to make sure you take care of yourself, because as much as we'd like to think that we could be the floating spirit above our keyboard still making animations past the grave, it's not possible. So take care of yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Several more words of wisdom from our dear you just keep them coming. Keep them coming. Well, it was so wonderful having you here with us again, Jonathan. And as always, it's such a pleasure, and we definitely want to keep in touch with you. And thank you for taking time. I know you've got a really busy schedule, and we really appreciated spending some time together. Yeah, and we hope to see you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. And I will now pass the baton, as I like to say every week, over to the lovely Lyndon and the equally lovely Lisa. So I'll let them take it away. Thank you, guys. Thanks for sharing this afternoon with us.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It was such a joy to have you back here with us. I love hearing about your journey and all the things that you're learning, your artistry, your wisdom. Definitely keeping that, be patient. I'm going to take that away from today. Thank you.
Definitely, Jonathan. It was amazing hearing from you again. And as always, we welcome you back again here anytime.
All right, Lyndon, it's just about that time. It looks like we're ending just a little bit early, just to let everybody know, and you'll still get your full incentive for today. But we're going to head into our closing ritual already. I know we started off by wondering what everybody's favorite iconic dance move is. So as you can guess, I'm going to invite all of you at home, wherever you are in your places and spaces, to create a movement that represents you. And Lyndon and I here are going to model our movements for all of you alongside all of you at home. So Lyndon, we're just going to do this on the count of 3. We're just going to create a movement that represents each of us. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Cool. I like that movement.
I hope you're all moving with us at home and continue to take this movement with you on with your day.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, it looks like we've come to the end of today's mega group. As always, please remember to stay connected with us through our website as well as our social media. And again, thank you for joining the Made in New York Animation Project mega group. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.
See ya.